Hello, friends. This week's episode is sponsored by Reform, a Catholic functional medicine practice and holistic wellness apostolate. Reform defines health as the state of the body and soul and invites their clients to return to a life of simplicity centered on Christ. Reform's mission is to help you reclaim your well-being in Christ and become the best version of yourself physically and spiritually. Through their unique faith-based approach, Reform addresses the root causes of disease and creates an environment internally and externally to heal the whole person. Reform's work revolves around their 9 wellness pillars, all centered on Christ. With faith at the center, the other pillars include sleep, stress management, personal growth, nutrition, play, functional movement, community, and space. Reform works with men and women worldwide, including laity, religious communities, and priests, both in person and online. Reform is offering an exclusive discount for all of our listeners on their upcoming Reform Online cohort, Reform Your Home and Family. Healthy parents are essential for the well-being of families, the church, and society. This cohort will help reorient your health, home, and family toward Christ, bringing balance, order, and simplicity to your domestic church. You will receive full access to their course, a 60-minute private consultation, resources to implement healthy and sustainable habits, accountability with the community, and more. We highly recommend their foundational course. We've each taken Reform Online and are still benefiting from the fruits in our daily lives. Use code ABIDE10 for your exclusive discount through November 15th. We invite you to learn more about Reform on their website, reformwellness.co, and on Instagram @reform_wellness to pursue the abundant life for which we've been made. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi, friends. Welcome to the Abiding Together podcast. And we are delighted to be with you on this adventure. And I know that the Lord is going to do wonderful things in all of our hearts. The Abiding Together podcast is a place where you can find connection, rest, and encouragement on your journey with Jesus Christ. And wherever you find yourself in the world, wherever you find yourself in your life, you are most welcome here. And we know that the Lord will speak to you. My name is Sister Miriam James Heidland, and every week I am joined by 2 of my very dearest friends, Heather Kim and Michelle Benzinger. And we speak about what the Lord is doing in our life. We speak about our sorrowful mysteries, our joyful mysteries, and how the Lord is leading us in it all. And you are most welcome right here, right here. So please grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and welcome home.
One more quick but important announcement. In case you haven't heard, we have chosen our Advent book study. It's called Encountering Emmanuel, and we can't wait to journey with you. We want to encourage you to pick up your copy as soon as you can because all of our previous book studies have sold out very quickly. You can pick up your copy through Ave Maria Press, Amazon, your local Catholic bookstore, or if you're in Canada, Sunrise Marian Online. You can do it by yourself or with a group, and we have all the info you need on our website.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Abiding Together podcast. And we are delighted to share with you that we are going to do a little 3-part series on the very recent encyclical that Pope Francis just released called Dilexit Nos, which is on the human and divine love of the heart of Jesus Christ. I think you're really going to enjoy it. It's sometimes we hear the word encyclical and we're like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? But it's a writing of the Holy Father that I think you're going to find very accessible and very pertinent to this time. So you can settle in for a 3-part series. But before we dive in, Heather and Michelle, we have been chatting already on this warm fall afternoon. Heather, how are you doing, friend?
Well, first of all, I'm experiencing gratitude that you can say all the Latin words on the podcast. I just want to say.
I was like, and that's why we pay her the big bucks. Like,
yep,
okay.
Exactly. That's not the only reason why you're here, but it's in the top 5.
How many ways would Michelle butcher that Latin title? Let's just count them, shall we?
It would definitely be a pasta dish if you were.
I feel like, what encyclical are you guys doing? I have no idea.
I don't know. It's the one on the Sacred Heart. Human love,
Yeah.
baby, human love.
But it's available at your local Olive Garden. Okay. So anyways, no, it is a warm day today. It's like 75 degrees, which is just shocking and beautiful because I am still in Steubenville, everybody. This is like becoming a thing, but the leaves are changing and it's gorgeous right now where we are. Michelle, how about you?
Mm-hmm.
You get to experience the fall colors now?
Oh my gosh, my kids are so sick of me, guys. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this red, look at this orange. And they're like, eh. And I'm like, no, look at these colors. They're vibrant. They're beautiful. They're pretty much over it. And I think it's the most magical thing ever. So yes, I am loving fall in all of its glory. We've done all the things, carved the pumpkins,
Did you
Delicate
really?
leaves. Yeah.
Nice.
All the different things. And so we're feeling very festive over here. It's good because you don't have fall in Florida. You do, but you don't.
Ain't no fall in South Texas either. So I love the great nation, but man, down south, there is no fall to be had. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a bit of a free-flowing conversation for the next few episodes about the encyclical. And you can find this encyclical for free. You can get it on the Vatican website. We also found some very cool links for you. So we're going to include them in the show notes. So there is a summary of the entire encyclical that was put out by the Pillar. So it's called A Brief Guide for Busy Readers, which you might find really helpful. So we're going to put that on there also. And then there's the link from the Vatican, there's the Pillar, which is a summary. We also found an audio version of the encyclical, which is really a new thing. And so if you want to listen to it, and I'm not sure if it's AI read, it's somebody about it with an Australian accent, which is really great. So whether it's AI or real life, or like I enjoy listening to really the Holy Father's words with an Australian accent. You can listen to it on Spotify, which is really cool as well. So there's a lot of ways to enter into it, and we'll have just a bit of a discussion and kind of help guide your reading. And so the Holy Father, in the very first paragraph of the encyclical, he's calling out several scriptures. So he's calling out from Romans and also the Gospel of John, but the reality that God first loved us. So that's what he starts out with. He loved us, St. Paul says of Christ, in order to make us realize that nothing can ever separate us from that love. Paul could say this with certainty because Jesus himself had told his disciples, I have loved you. And so right away, we're starting with the call of God for us, not our response to God, but it's God for us, that he loved us first, that he has called us friends, that we have come to know and believe in the one that God has for us and in the love that God has for us. And so starting with that framework of God is the divine initiator, right? He's the unmoved mover. Michelle, what for you sticks out as we speak about in this first episode about kind of an intro to the whole thing, and also chapter 1 that talks about the importance of the heart?
First of all, I feel like this encyclical was a gift. The timing of it was divine. But one of the things that just, even how he starts us off in the introduction in the chapter 1, the importance of the heart, and that he's looking for lovers. He's looking to be loved, and he's looking for us to remember that we are lovers, and that first and foremost, he loved us first. He's pursuing us with this everlasting love, but he is looking for those who are going to love him. And I just thought it was beautifully done. And just even talking about the centrality of the heart. But I loved it what he said, like in the line number 2, the section number 2, he said, all of us need to rediscover the importance of the heart. So I think it's an invitation wherever we are with the Lord right now, that he's calling us deeper, and he's calling us deeper into his most sacred heart. And for such a time as this, there's a reason the church in her wisdom decided that this needed to be released. And he's inviting us to a language, that's the language of the heart. What about you, Heather?
I loved this document. I was like, what? He's doing something about the heart, And I just thought, wow, I was really excited to read it. And then as I got into it, I just honestly felt like I was highlighting something from every single paragraph. I was like, calm down, Heather. But I just thought there was so many good things in here. To be honest, someone sent us a message today and just sort of said something negative about Pope Francis when we posted about the document coming out. And I just thought, I know that people have mixed feelings about him, but I don't think we should forget he is the vicar of Christ. The Holy Spirit is moving. You might not like some of his decisions, but the Holy Spirit is moving and speaking through him. And this document is just one of the fruits of that. Like, I just thought it was beautiful. I thought the way that he wrote, the things that he said, how he pulled it all together was really stunning. And so if you find yourself in a place where normally you can be a little bit resistant, I just want to invite you to open your heart to what Jesus wants to say to you through this document, because I really thought it was beautiful. Yeah. How about you, sister?
I agree with you. I experienced reading it. I read it solid for like an hour and 20 minutes. I just sat there and read. I'm like, this is really good, and just really enjoyed it. And then I watched college football after that. But I mean, you have to, it's both of the hearts. It's both,
it's both lungs.
It's breathing with both lungs. But I appreciated how at the very beginning, he defines the terms, and I'm just going to read number 3 for us. So he says, what do we mean by the heart? And words matter and concepts matter. And just to prevent us from thinking when we talk about the heart, we're talking about some sort of passing sentimentalism or, just follow your heart or do whatever feels right. We're not talking about any of that. So he's going to, literally number 3 at the very beginning, he's going to say this, and I'll just read it to you. He says, in classical Greek, the word cardia denotes the inmost part of human beings, animals, and plants. For Homer, it indicates not only the center of the body, but also the human soul and spirit. In the Iliad, thoughts and feelings proceed from the heart and are closely bound to one another. The heart appears as the locus of desire and the place where important decisions take shape. In Plato, the heart serves, as it were, to unite the rational and instinctive aspects of the person, since the impulses of both the higher faculties and the passions were thought to pass through the veins that converge in the heart. From ancient times, then, there has been an appreciation of the fact that human beings are not simply a sum of different skills, but a unity of body and soul with a coordinating center that provides a backdrop of meaning and direction to all that a person experiences. And the Catechism will echo this, and I think it was 2563, that the heart is our hidden center. And what happens in our hearts and what doesn't happen in our hearts matters. So for all the ways we say, oh, it doesn't matter, we just make those excuses all the time. What happens in our hearts matters. And I think for a time such as this, the Holy Father is calling us back to, first and foremost, the heart of Jesus, who has a divine and a human heart, a human heart, and he's a human nature and a divine nature. So in heaven right now, there is a man and a woman with their bodies, with human hearts, Jesus and Mary. And it just is such an elevation of humanity, Jesus taking on our humanity and bringing it into his own, that no matter what's happening in our humanity that's broken, he can make whole. But that happens in the center of who we are and our willingness to be able to go to the center of our hearts and our lives with Christ. And that's really important.
Totally. I loved just following that in like 5 and 6. There was just a couple places that I highlighted because it's talking about how the heart is also the locus of sincerity. And he says, where deceit and disguise have no place, it usually indicates our true intentions and what we think, our believe and desires, the secrets that we tell no one. In a word, the naked truth about ourselves. And I was like, oh, that's so good. And then he goes on to say the interior reality of each person is frequently concealed behind a great deal of foliage, reference to, in the garden, which makes it difficult for us not only to understand ourselves, but even more to know others. And then he goes on and says, but despite every attempt to appear as something we're not, our heart is the ultimate judge, not of what we show or hide from others, but of who we truly are. And I think I was thinking about just that place. And I was like, that's why sometimes we can distance ourselves from our heart, especially if we don't want to face the real true self, or we're scared, or we've covered it up, or we think we've become all of these other things. It can make us not want to engage with that real place of who we are, because we are faced with reality. And I just loved how he was talking about that, because I think sometimes we think we're really good at covering up everything and no one can see. And it's like, but there is a place where we are who we really are. And that's also a beautiful place. That's a place where I think many of us need to rediscover and begin to peel away the foliage, as he calls it, to get to our real selves again. Michelle, what did you think about that?
I thought that was really good. I just think I'm coming off a week-long retreat with some of the CFRs, Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, and it's been really good and really powerful. But one of the times in one of the masses, I had one of those Emmaus moments where my heart was burning, where you just are like, okay. And it's almost like you forget the goodness of the Lord. It's almost like that spiritual amnesia. I know I follow the Lord. I'm in relationship with him. We're committed, he and I, we've defined our relationship, but you also forget that honeymoon, he's your lover, he's your first love. And there's something about it that burns, but then he is so tender and he's so kind. So when you're experiencing that flame of fire where our heart's not burning within us, that Emmaus Road experience, then he ever so kindly just shows you your areas of self-protection. And one of the lines that was said this weekend, I cannot stop thinking about it, was Father Angela said, he's like, you can't self-gift and self-protect at the same time. And I've been thinking about that over and over again, okay. And the Sacred Heart is a flame, and it's an open flame that is pierced. So when you're open, you're going to be hurt. When you allow your heart to be open, it's going to be hurt. But man, don't we want to grab that foliage? Don't we want to grab those leaves in the garden and be like, And I think this is an invitation for the Lord to asking all of us to say, okay, will you open your heart and let me in and set it aflame once again? The areas that it is dying, or where there's just embers, there's life, but there's embers. But what are the names of those paddles that you have to have, when your heart needs to be resuscitated? What is it? What is it called? You know what I'm talking about? And they shock you and your heart comes back to life. That's what I'm thinking. Is this what the document is for the church? Is he trying to shock our hearts back into life? back into love with Jesus and who he is in the Sacred Heart, I think he might be.
Mm-hmm.
Sister, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, which we need that. And he says, Pope Francis says in number 8, which I think it's so easy to do. He says, instead of running after superficial satisfactions and playing a role for the benefit of others, we would do better to think about the really important questions in life. And I was thinking of, these are great journaling questions for all of us. I mean,
Yes.
to really sit with, whether you took one per day or you just spent several weeks, maybe even going into Advent, of really sitting with each one, because he's asking very deep questions. Who am I really? What am I looking for? What direction do I want to give to my life, my decisions, and my actions? Why and for what purpose am I in the world? How do I want to look back on my life once it ends? What meaning do I want to give all my experiences? Who do I want to be for others? Who am I for God? All these questions lead us back to the heart. And it just reminds me of in the Gospels where Jesus encounters the rich young man who says, good teacher, what do I have to do to inherit eternal life? And he lists all the things. And then the Lord looks at him with great love and he says, you lack one thing. And I was thinking of how often in our life we can be doing all the good things, and we can do the committees, and we can do this group, and we can do, but in our hearts, we say that even our heart's not in it, or our heart went cold, or our heart lost its luster, or our heart is confused. And those things are not just kind of sayings that we have in, just English, but it's speaking to something about the heart, because isn't that what lovers do? Lovers give one another a heart, their hearts. And to the degree to which we have, in our appropriate relationships of intimacy, we're allowing people to see our hearts. And that's what people want to encounter. Like, I love both of you very much. And it's a gift to receive your heart. It's a gift to experience you. It's a gift to hear your fears. It's a gift to hear your joys. And I would be very sad if you didn't trust me with your heart, like, oh gosh, what's happening in my own heart where maybe I'm not trusted or something like that. So when we encounter somebody, we want to encounter their heart, and Jesus opens his heart wide for us, and he doesn't have the foliage. And that's a stunning and shocking way to live. I think it feels so vulnerable to live relationally versus reactionally is so vulnerable. It's just so hard. And Jesus is teaching us how to live that way, because that's how he lives.
Yeah, that's so good. I think I want to go back to just what you said at the very beginning, that sometimes when we hear that word, the heart, we can think about it in just sentimental terms, and as if it's not as good as the mind, it's not as important, it's not as holy, or that we shouldn't pursue it as much, that's a dangerous place, the heart, it's full of emotions and such things that get carried away. We better rein that in. There's sort of this negative attitude, I guess, we can have towards the heart. We want to shut it down. We want to put it in its right place. And I think we're misunderstanding maybe what some of that is, like maybe there's emotions that yes, we need some regulation in or something like that. But he even talks about emotions later and how important they are, and that Jesus experienced human emotions. So I can't wait to get into that part, but I'm going to hold off for just a second. Yeah, we can't run from the heart. And I think we need to elevate the importance of the heart, not as if it's some childish thing that we should set aside and really get to the good business of thinking, and using our intellect to meet God. The intellect should lead us into communion with him as well. But as he says here, I think it's in number 12, he says, only the heart creates intimacy and true closeness between two persons. Only the heart is able to welcome and offer hospitality. Intimacy is the proper activity and the domain of the heart. And then he just goes on to say, a man can enter into himself only with the heart, not with the mind. It is not in man's power to enter into his own interiority with the mind. Hence, if the heart is not alive, the man remains a stranger to himself. I was like, oh my gosh, that's just so, so, so insightful. And I think what we're drawing to is that the things that we can learn about our own heart opens us up to what we can understand about Jesus. And I was thinking, as you were talking about, hurts and wounds and stuff that happen in the heart, I was like, there is nothing sweeter after you've been wounded so deeply, and your heart's been wounded. There's nothing sweeter than encountering the love that won't do that to you. Like a love that you can rest in when you've experienced infidelity, a heart and a love that will always be faithful to you. And I think we misunderstand like how healing the Lord's heart can be to our hearts. But it's not just some intellectual like thing that we need to work through, or some self-help book or whatever. It's his actual heart that brings healing to our own heart, because he is everything that we're looking for. He is the remedy in every single way for the wounds that we've experienced.
That's beautiful. Amen. And isn't that the most important journey that we take, is that 18 inches from our head to our heart, and to have those integrated in the fullness of the Holy Spirit, and to be rooted and grounded in love and ordered love, not disordered love, but to be able to express our emotions in ordered ways. But I love, like, hopping back up to 11, like, to use the language of your heart. I remember when some people that come around our family, they're like, you guys talk a language that we don't speak. Like, because one of the questions we'll always ask, how's your heart? That's taken some people aback. They're like, I don't know how my heart is. I'm like, hey, we should probably figure that out. Let's get curious about that. Let's figure out what's going on in your heart. But I mean, another term of Pope Francis, that's what a church fully alive looks like. You know, and I love what he says. If we devalue, in number 11, if we devalue the heart, we also devalue what it means to speak from the heart, to act with the heart, to cultivate and heal the heart. If we fail to appreciate the specificity of the heart, we miss the message that the mind alone cannot communicate. We miss out on the richness of our encounters with others. And this is the line I love. We miss out on poetry. And I was like, bring it home, Francis, bring it home. But isn't that something? The people that don't know Christ, they will be captivated by our captivated with the one that can heal us. They will be captivated by this one that's heart that burns for us. When the people see people in love, you want that. Like, you desire that because it is ingrained in us. We are destined and created for love, out of love. I mean, for love, to give it back, to receive and give it back. But there's something just so amazing to see someone like wildly in love and aflame. You can't help but be like, oh, what is that? You want to come closer to it because it is so captivating. I think that's what he's inviting us to be captivated by his heart once again.
It just totally makes me think of G.K. Chesterton's famous quote, let your religion be less of a theory and more of a love affair, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
That's beautiful. And isn't that what people found so fascinating about Christ? They even if they couldn't understand what he was teaching, many times they were fascinated just by him. They were captivated by who Christ was. Something in their heart caught his heart. And they were inflamed by this man, the way he preaches, the way he lives, the way he loves, the way he touches people, who he is never seen anything like this. We've never seen anything like it. And in Numbers 19 and 20, Pope Francis speaks about Our Lady and how she the symbol, and she treasures everything and she ponders them in her heart, gathering together things in her heart. And it says the heart is also capable of unifying and harmonizing our personal history, which may seem hopelessly fragmented, yet is the place where everything can make sense. The gospel tells us this in speaking of Our Lady, who saw this with her heart. And I think one of my most favorite passages in this entire encyclical is the next one. And I'm just going to read part of it. It evoked such a strong memory in me. And maybe you didn't have this exact memory, but it was just so well put. You could actually like smell the kitchen. He says, and it's so true, number 20, he says, in this age of artificial intelligence, we cannot forget that poetry and love are necessary to save our humanity. No algorithm will ever be able to capture, for example, the nostalgia that all of us feel, whatever our age and wherever we live, when we recall how we used a fork to seal the edges of the pies that we helped our mothers and our grandmothers to make at home. It was a moment of culinary apprenticeship, somewhere between child play and adulthood, when we first felt responsible for working and helping one another. Along with the fork, I could also mention thousands of other little things that are a precious part of everyone's life. It just is, and isn't that true? Like, I thought about that, like my mom, when I was little, teaching me how to do that. I'm like, and it's true. Nothing could, and the age of, like he's saying, artificial intelligence, or all the data we have and it's just how wealthy our society is. There's nothing that will ever replace those memories, which are tucked away in our heart, that he says at the end of the part. It's just so stunningly beautiful. Like, that's so true.
That's so good. And I think we're going to have to hang on to that more than ever. We cannot forget those things and those experiences. I love that he just is continuing to talk about the unity in the heart, and that it pulls all the fragments together. And he's saying that this can be the dwelling place of love in all its spiritual, psychic, and even physical dimensions. And it's our profound core. This is what he's talking about, our unique psychosomatic identity. And I just love that he just keeps taking it one step further. Like with every paragraph, he's like, nope, let's just go a little deeper. Let's go a little deeper. And so, yeah.
And I love how at the end of chapter 1, he talks about fire. because the Sacred Heart is aflamed. It is on fire. And I love the quote he used by Bonaventure. It says, Saint Bonaventure tells us that in the end, we should not pray for light, but for raging fire. And I was thinking to myself, Heather, it reminds me a little bit of your word of the year, friend. So just
why
telling
not
you out
become
there.
totally fire? I mean, why not, guys?
I know. Exactly. Like I was like, okay, there's Heather's word. I'll take poetry for re-enchantment in my word. And you take, but raging fire. But I was thinking to myself, like really, I was trying to pray through this document as I was reading it and not just try to consume it. Like you said, I was trying to cultivate and allow it to stir within my heart. Like Sister, what you said about the questions earlier, those are some powerful questions that don't need to be just like glanced at and skipped over, but really they are the pondering kind that we need to ponder and pray with. But man, how many times I just settle for light? Like, just give me a little candle when you want to give me like a whole lighthouse, Lord. Like you want to give me a raging fire. You want to give me a bonfire, and I'll settle for a little tea light, won't I? That's what the world needs now. They need raging fires, aflame with his love. So yeah, it's just so beautiful. As you continue on and on and on. I mean, this is such a beautiful document. Like I would really encourage our listeners, this is a document to bring with you to Holy Hour and just meditate on simple parts of it, not even the whole thing, because any one part of it is just so rich and great that you could just feast on it forever. You know, like, oh, wow, this is really good.
So Michelle, in our part 1 here, what is your one thing for the week?
My one thing is I have to give a big shout out to the CFR postulants. Spending a week with them. They are amazing. The group of guys, I'm really thankful just to be with them and get to know them and all of that. But the two priests that I were with, Father Innocent and Father Angelus Montgomery, they have actually written a book called Sons in the Sun. And actually it is a consecration. It's restoring our sonship through consecration to Our Lady of Guadalupe. And they wrote it through the Knights of Columbus. So ladies, for your husbands, for your boyfriends, for your dads, for your sons, for all those things. This is a beautiful, beautiful 40-day consecration to restoring your sonship through Our Lady of Guadalupe. That will begin and end on December 12th, Our Lady of Guadalupe's feast day. So I will send, and I think I'll send all the information, but you actually get a reflection, I think, emailed to you every day and all that kind of good stuff. So it is actually, I was reading through it and it is beautiful. So well done, friar people. Anyway, yeah, they're my one thing. What about you, Heather?
And people could follow that up with a pilgrimage to Guadalupe on the 6th of January. And they can join me and Father Dave Pavanka. We're going, check it out on faithandreason.com, I think. So my one thing is actually a conference I went to here at Franciscan, which they held called Man and Woman in the Order of Creation. And it was a wonderful conference. I don't think you'd see that just anywhere. And even Dr. Deborah Savage got up and she said, I just want to thank Father Dave for allowing this conference to even happen, because I tried to do this before at another place and they shut it down. And she said, just the freedom that we have here to speak the truth and to explore and have dialogue and conversation about things, so good. So anyway, there was a live stream and I know they're going to be putting the talks up. So it's not available right now, but very soon, keep your eyes out for that. And I'm going to put the link in the show notes. And also check it. The new Abiding Together t-shirts. I'm wearing one right now. So everybody can get those. Sister, what's your one thing?
That sounds good. Well, while you're reading the book and watching the talks on live stream, I have a little recipe for you that you might want to prepare to help you. And it is a recipe from Joanna Gaines, which we all love Joanna Gaines. And it is her tomato basil soup, and paired with grilled cheese or steak, like a steak panini, which is really, really good as well. So it's so lovely. It has fire roasted tomatoes in it. It's got fresh basil. It's got heavy cream. It's got all the good things, chicken broth, all kinds of good stuff. So if you're looking for a yummy fall, you can use without meat, or you can put some meat in it, whatever you want to do with it. Joanna Gaines's tomato basil soup, which I put a link to the recipe on the show notes. Yeah, Well, thank you so much for joining us, dear friends, for part 1 of our encyclical, Dilexit Nos. We hope it's been a gift to you, and we look forward to continuing our discussion next week. Until then, we'll be abiding together. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you liked it, would you please share it with a friend and leave us a review? We encourage you to head over to our website, abidingtogetherpodcast.com, where you can find all the show notes, links to our one things, group discussion questions for each episode, and beautiful coffee mugs, t-shirts, journals, and prints in our shop. There you can also subscribe to receive our weekly email with links to each new episode and all of the content. We'd love to connect on social media and invite you to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter so you can catch inspiring reflections every day. You're also welcome to join our private Facebook group and dive deeper into discussions with our fellow listeners. If the podcast has blessed you, would you prayerfully consider financially supporting us? The Abiding Together podcast is only available due to the generous support of our listeners. There are significant costs associated with creating this content, such as tech support, design, website, equipment, and hired staff that we need to be able to continue offering great content. Abiding Together is a nonprofit 501c3, and all donations are tax deductible. You can make donations of any amount through the Patreon website, or you can send us a check directly if that's easier for you. If you donate $15 or more per month on our Patreon page, you become a tribe member, and you will receive bonus content every month, such as recipes, music playlist, downloadable prints, and more. You can find all the information at patreon.com/abidingtogetherpodcast. Thank you so much, and God bless you.